So anyway, so Islam, and you also find like obviously descriptions of paradise in the Quran do very strongly suggest that, people will have enjoy sexual congress in paradise, in addition to the other types of bodily pleasures that are mentioned, like eating and drinking various, delicious fruits and foods, and reclining on sofas of silk, and so on and so forth. And then the greatest pleasure of paradise, of course, is the vision of God Himself, right? The ru'ya. But nevertheless, the Quran, doesn't really have a fundamental problem with these sort of the physical aspect of being, but it brings it under the divine law and the divine ruling, and it dignifies it and sanctifies it by making these bodily functions, so to speak, a concern, part of the divine concern, shall we say. So Islam some have said that, I remember Christopher Hitchens once said, "Oh, Islam is very grubby. It's like kind of in the dirt," he said. I mean, he was an atheist, but he was very anti-Islamic,
Very.
He was, I remember, he's very pro-Bosnian back at the time of the war, but that was not a religion. He was very critical of the Islamic religion. But what he meant, he said, it sounds like very earthy. And I think even though he's an atheist, he's still coming from this kind of Christian background. And what he doesn't realize that for a Muslim perspective, Islam is actually, the companions, the disbelievers of Mecca said, "Oh, your prophet even teaches you how to go to the bathroom." Because in Islam, we have to clean ourselves a particular way, use water, and so on and so forth. Like, you don't just do it any which way, because cleanliness and nadafatu min al-iman, cleanliness is part of faith. And so the disbelievers made fun of the Muslims, like, what kind of prophet is even teaching you how to clean yourself? And he said, yes, that's right. He teaches us even how to clean ourselves, because this becomes also an act now that is endowed with significance, because there's a proper way to do it. There's a sunnah behind it, a way of following the prophetic guidance. And this is what guidance is, all it's comprehensive. And so you have this notion that these bodily functions, they have to be, of course, trained, and they have to be schooled, and they have to be reined in, and they have to be directed in the proper way, but they are not in and of themselves wrong or bad. And that's why you have Muslim scholars with no qualms whatsoever talking about, these things in paradise, and even writing some of the great scholars. I mean, I'm kind of going a little off topic, but again, I think it's important for us to realize from a large percent, because we will be told that we're prudes. If you're not on board with the LGBT, then you guys are just repressing this. No. Islam very much throughout its history, has been very open. We have major scholars of the religion who also wrote basically sex manuals. I mean, not just about fiqh, the rulings of it, but how to actually pleasure your spouse and yourself in different positions, and so on and so forth, written by religious scholars. This is part of their scholarly output. It's a completely legitimate, subject of inquiry. No problem whatsoever, but within the proper context. So Islam has always had that middle. I think the Christian perspective was so anti-body, anti-sex, also, I think maybe, quite anti-woman in a lot of respects too, with, Eve was the one who brought sin into the world and so forth. There's nothing equivalent like that in Islam, right? That it went from that to like, sort of the other extreme. And we see that now. But, as Muslims, I think, again, Muslims, especially in the current Western environment where we are compared to the current environment, we are very strict and quote unquote like prude. I mean, prude, it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad word, but very restrained. And we have a stern sexual morality. Absolutely. And it's central to our religion. But that just means that sexuality has to take place in the right context. And we're very, very insistent upon that. But in that context, it's a fine thing. It's a good thing. It's nothing to be ashamed of. And that's the proper balance. That's what we would say as Muslims is the proper balance.